US. We're live on Oak Barrel, so it looks like we're all working and live on Roundtable. Welcome, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Go, Scotty.
Go, Scotty.
Are we ready?
Over to you.
I'm ready. Who else is ready? We're all ready. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Scott Fitzsimons, and welcome to a very, very special edition of the Whiskey Roundtable here on whatever day it is, because it's 2020 and the days don't matter anymore. As I said, my name is Scott Fitzsimons, and I am sitting in the back room of the Oak Barrel a bit earlier than we normally are, so the store is still open, and I'm hanging out here by myself, desperately trying to find internet in all the four corners of this room. But as always, it has been a huge week for whiskey. In fact, it's been a mammoth week for whiskey. I think the last time we were all relatively in the same room, apart from Matt Barley, because we didn't invite him, was on the fantastic Whiskey on the Rocks event held over 3 or 4 days on the weekend. Bloody good time to be drinking whiskey in such a beautiful place and in such beautiful buildings around the rocks. Matt Bailey is back this week. He's been away for last week, so we haven't heard much from him. He's in control this week, so I think there's a little bit of the small man syndrome. He wasn't invited on last week, and so he's taken back and taken control. We don't know how that is going. Andrew Milne almost missed out again. He's always late, Milne. And we do know a little bit more about Milne than we did last week. Puddles. Henceforth known as Puddles, and let it be known from everywhere. My mother was here on the stream last week. I actually caught up with my mother on the weekend, and she said, Scott, it was terrible. I'm never watching again. So we won't see her again this week. Good luck to Mum to see if she can win the trivia at the Orange RSL this afternoon. But we do have something very special, and you can tell it's very special by the blue sky and the barley. I can't see it on my screen at the moment, but I'm sure you can.
Wait. Say hi.
Alex Dallenberg and Papa Dallenberg, they're fighting through their harvester problems they've been having this Arvo. They're putting everything to one side. We know farming rests for no man, so we do take the very big pleasure of having a little bit of farmyard on the stream tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to ask that question of all questions to the roundtable, to the members of the roundtable, to all you internet people out there and all the Bangladeshi bots we're paying to bump up our number streams. What is in your glass tonight, whiskey lovers?
Look, because you gave me such a roaring insult, I'm going to say this is not small man syndrome. This is just the fact that Scotty couldn't host. He had very small man syndrome. So I'm helping out tonight. And I started with a Negroni, and I've just literally finished it, so I'll need a dram very shortly.
Is that one you learned from one of your cocktail classes that you did?
Yeah. I used all 3 ingredients this time.
I'm impressed.
I'm eating barley straight from the stem right now. We don't have any whiskey here at the moment. Well, not whiskey that I'm going to open a bottle. Dad's got some special bottles stored for me here that I wasn't going to open them up. I'm sorry, guys. Also, there's some harvesting driving that needs to happen tonight. So, yes, I think that runs the same as the DUI rules.
I'm actually going back a little bit. I'm visiting some stuff. I haven't visited in a little while, a bit of Diageo stock. So I'm actually on the Ye Olde Lagavulin 16, which has been a long time since I've sat around with this. So we're going to, I've actually got the Cragganmore 12 and the Talisker 10 in front of me as well here. So I'm going to give them a run tonight and just see how I remember them and see if they taste like I did.
Yeah. Like benchmark whiskies. They are consistently good, and you just can't fault them. I think I've never had bad versions of those whiskies.
Let me try
not
them.
always
I'll do my
performed
best to follow
at their absolute best. Okay, some of it's not really dark.
Give me a little while. I think we should kick off. Obviously, we're on a farm, Team Dallenberg, somewhere in Australia, presumably. Exactly where are you right now?
We're in Gornong, which is kind of in between Bendigo and Elmore on the main road. We're just set back off the main road. We're on about 1,000 acres at the moment. And just behind us is our barley crop for the year. It's quite huge, as you can see. And there's actually 2 types of barley.
That's so amazing to see, like, one of the raw ingredients just there. And we take it so for granted, just that whole sort of like, oh, I'm drinking whiskey, I'm drinking this whiskey, I'm drinking this whiskey. Look where it comes from. Look at that. That's awesome.
That's it.
There it is.
Yeah. It's something that we harp on quite a bit, whether we're talking about whiskey or any spirit or any wine or any beer. It comes from the ground first and foremost. And it's something you don't see. There's a couple of rum distilleries in Australia that you drive through sugarcane fields to get to the distillery. But it's very rare that you actually see the grain next to a distillery. But Alex, could you please give us a bit of an introduction to that good-looking rooster?
Oh, you're going to get all the brownie points. Guys, this is my dad, Colin Dallenberg. I'm going to talk him up. He's a little bit of a harvesting legend around New South Wales, a little bit into Queensland and into Victoria. We're currently in the middle of harvest, so Dad's got a harvester going on a canola crop at the moment. We have a lovely gentleman helping out with harvest, and then I think after some dinner tonight, he'll head back into the crop and continue harvesting tonight. So we've been shifting a shitload of hay today while the harvest is going, and we've had a couple of little mechanical issues today, I think.
Yeah, broken chain.
Couple of broken chains, that's it. So tell me, how long have you been harvesting, Dad?
I did my first harvest. I think end of 1962.
1962. Make sure you speak up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so 1962, can you do the calculations for me there, guys?
63
58
years.
64.
64, 65. Okay, so it's quite a long time he's been harvesting. I think we've actually still got
56 years.
56 years, you reckon? And we've got our first harvester. Your first harvester still in the shed, right?
First one that I bought myself in my own right.
And what year was that?
1969.
1969. That was a good year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we landed on the bloody moon. It's bloody genius here, mate.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you a question there? I mean, obviously, myself and Milne, we're men of the world and we understand these things. But Matt Bailey's never been out of the city, so he doesn't understand. Just for the layman, what is that like? You're talking about harvesting at the moment. What does that actually mean for someone who presumably has get it from the ground out? Like, what does it mean from a working point of view?
Well, the crop ripens, as you can see behind us here, and then there's a machine that it goes in. It cuts it off, or it gathers it. It cuts it off, sweeps it to the centre of the machine, then pushes it up through the centre of the machine, and there's a big cylinder, spinning cylinder with a solid concave underneath it with holes in it, and the grain goes through that cylinder, and it is actually thrashed from the stem of the barley or wheat or whatever it is. It's thrashed into grain with all the chaff and everything mixed with it. Then it goes further through the machine, and there's an air blast that blasts the rubbish and everything away from the grain, and there's a set of straw walkers that actually work up and down and shake all the grain out of the straw. Then the straw is deposited out the back. The smaller chaff is blown out the back, and the grain is elevated up into a box. And that grain is basically what we deliver to the grain boards, grain
silos.
traders, silos, whatever you like to call it. And from there, it's bought by people that want to do different things with it. It's all graded into different grades. Barley, you've got malt 1, malt 2, feed grain 1 and 2, that's the way it sort of happens, and we're paid on the grade it is.
Yeah.
So if you actually want to see what a harvester is, head to my Instagram story. There's quite a few pages of it, and that's basically it taking the crop up through the centre. You can see it's emptying the canola out into a little mobile silo, and then you can also see the straw and the spent grass going out the back of the harvester.
Yeah. So what are we looking at behind you then? Are we looking at an F grade or an M grade, or?
We're looking at about I'm going to say it's about it could be a feed 1, but I just on inspection of it, it has got a little bit of small grain in it, and it might not meet test weight, so it could be F2, which is feed 2. It's got too much discolouring in it for moulding. And as the way the year has been around here, there's going to be very little malting barley anyway, because it's going to have too much colour in it, or too much discolouring.
And what is that decided? What point is the grading decided? Is that sort of early? Do you sort of, is it planted knowing for, like, aiming for a grading, or is it based on the crop and rainfall and everything else? I mean, how does that grading come about?
Well, we always plant barley hoping for F1 or hoping for malt 1, but it is the terms and the conditions of the weather that we receive, the fertilizer under the paddock, the history of the paddock, and all those things. They all decide the end, or decide what grain we get at the end. Many a year I've pulled into a paddock of barley and stripped a sample and took it away to have it tested. Oh yeah, we've got malt 1. We get 20 points of rain that night, and when we can get back at it probably a day and a half later, it's gone down to feed 1. And 20 points of rain can make all the difference between malt 1 and feed 1.
So that's how volatile the situation is.
Yeah, because I grew up around a huge amount of wheat fields, and everyone was harvesting, throughout the season, and through day and then into night. And I always wonder, like, are you harvesting overnight just to make sure it's like when it's at its optimum point, you've got to get as much as you can while the grass is green, as it were, and
you've got to get as much as you can in the shortest possible period you can, because another rain event on it could change the whole show and drop the price of it $40-$60 a ton.
And when it's ripe and ready, what sort of time period are you working on to clear the field?
Depends how big the field is. I've been in fields of 5,000 acres. The field we're behind us here is only 20 acres in size. So, when I pull into this, I will have it off in the day.
Yeah.
But 5,000 acres, well, it just takes a little bit longer. And this is why you see some of these people up north and that with anything up to 5 big machines with, 15-metre fronts on them, harvesting all together, because they're trying to get it off in a hurry and get their grading of their wheat, oats, barley, whatever it is, up as high as they possibly can.
So he's talking about having multiple machines in one crop, just all going at once with chaser tractors or bins. So the harvesters just don't stop. So when we did ours, I think it was 2 years ago or last year, Dad just stayed in the harvester the whole time. And what I'd do is I'd pull up in the tractor with an auger bin on the back, and he'd unload on the run. There were a lot of really bad hand signals, with the whole point of trying to line up the augers and the and what do you call the arm?
Oh, the unloading auger. Yeah,
unloading auger. There you go. So there was a lot of bad hand signals, but the whole idea is just to keep them going, so we can get it off in the right conditions. So, Dad, why is ours not going to be molten grade this year? You want to talk through your season?
We had 19 millimetres of rain on it 72 hours ago, and that has discoloured the grain. I've just been and had a look, and it's discoloured the grain. So we're looking at probably F1 or F2. And the other thing is that it's a pretty good crop. And usually when you get into big, heavy yields, because there's been plenty of moisture, you usually get a certain percentage of small grain, which goes through a 2 mil sieve at the depot. And if you've got above about 10 or 12% screenings, that deducts you from F1 to F2.
Yeah. And the colour plays a part of that, did you say?
I'm sorry?
The colorization, the colour of the grain plays a
yes
in the rating?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
The colour of the grain. It's got to be for moulding. It's got to be beautiful, bright,
White.
shiny grain. This has got quite a bit of yellowing in it from the 19 mil of rain 72 hours ago.
I don't know how much we can see that.
That's
You can
good.
see the. Also, barley can get black spots in it as well, and that's from a hell of a lot of rain. So we've just got cars going past. We're on the side of the main road, and Dad's just waving to people.
What they call black tip.
Black tip. There you go.
Can I ask?
And what happened when? Go for it.
So you just quickly in terms of the difference between a price of F1 to say M2, how substantial is that difference to what you see at market?
Could be $45 a tonne.
Difference between the two?
Yeah, difference between the two. At present, at our local depot at present, I think barley one is running at about $205 or $206 a tonne, and I know that F1 is back to about 185 or something like that.
So it can be a good 25% of the overall value from the top grade to the lower grades.
Yes.
And do you want to tell them what you were telling me in the car last night about there's going to be plenty of barley around,
but
there's not going to be a lot of malting grade
There's going
barley.
to be miles of barley around because all the crops are, all the crops up north are big crops. All the crops down here, they're probably yielding double, 2.5 times of what they yielded last year in a drought year. So there's going to be just miles of barley around.
And also a lot of exports stopped as well.
Yeah, well, as you know, as you've probably heard, the Chinese have turned around and put an 80% tariff on us because they reckon we were being subsidised. And if you can find any subsidisation in Australian primary industry or Australian grain industry, I'd like to know about it because I'd like to get in on it. But China reckons that we've been subsidising, the government's been subsidising Australian grain farmers, and they've just put an 80% tariff on all barley going into China, and China was our biggest barley market. So,
you were commenting on the year then, and briefly on the years of drought. We all know across not just grain farmers, but all farmers have had it exceptionally tough the past 5 years or so. How has 2020 been? While our attention's maybe been a little bit diverted to other things that have been going on in the world, how's the 2020 year been overall for you guys?
Do you want to talk about, like, after you sowed, what happened?
2020, I predicted that it was going to break early. I went away and bought a heap of poor drought emancipated cattle that were that poor that you could push them over. I had to take feed up to them and feed them for a month or 5 weeks before I brought them home.
And that was just to be able to get them on the truck?
That was just to get them strong enough to put them on the truck and bring them home. I sowed crop, I think on the second rain, and started sowing, and then I was waiting for a contractor to come and spray barley country. When he turned up, I sowed it. We had 70-something mil of rain 48 hours after that, and I've had to re-sow it again.
So it basically got washed out.
Got washed out, busted.
So that's double the amount of grain that's gone in to sowing it just for 1 year. And then that tiny little bit of rain we had the other day has dropped it quite substantially, or the price that we're going to get for it. So it's quite a rough scenario, especially I was devastated when we found out that we had to re-sow again this year. So
incredible.
But rain's better this year.
Amazing.
Well, I'll take rain any day. You know, you can make more mud. You can make more money out of mud than you can out of dust. And the thing is that stock prices are good at present. It's the first time in my lifetime that I've seen the young cattle index, or that's the price of meat hanging up in the cool store, the young cattle index, and the lamb index, which is the same thing. The lamb's hanging up in a cool store, somewhere around the same, and that's the first time I've seen that in probably 70 odd years.
Yeah, right.
And you know, cattle are bringing phenomenal money, lambs are bringing phenomenal money. So you know,
So the season's much better this year, except for our barley.
but you know, and right in the barley this year, well, quantity is going to make up for quantity this year is going to make up for quality of last year.
Mm.
Last year we never had much rain on it, and we had fairly good quality barley. You know, there was malt barley and things like that floating around. This year, you know, we could be looking at a lot of the crops this year will actually be double of what they made last year, or double of what they yielded last year.
But presumably
So,
a little bit less in quality, so more F graded.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the different strains that you've got going here? You've got 2 paddocks, 2 different strains.
Yes, we've got 2 different paddocks, and we've got one with the one behind us is RGT Planet, which has been released as a malting grade.
It was classified in November 2018 as a malting grade barley. After Cooper's Malting did a lot of stuff with it. But that strain is actually the specific barley that they use in Carlsberg beer.
Yeah, right.
And the other one we've got, which is a fairly new one, another one that we've got, which is a fairly new one, is Spartacus. It's supposed to have less small grain in it than Planet. And this is what knocks Planet round for malting and that type of thing. It's got too much small grain in it. Last year I graded some Planet through a 2 millimetre screen, and the sample I came up with, just, you know, people would rave over it as far as for your malting because it had all this beautiful big seed in it, and it would have made good malting barley. But RGT Planet has just got some too many small grains in it, which you've got to put through a grader to grade out, so you can size the grain that you actually want to malt.
Do we see many of the malt varieties that you see in other countries, like especially in France and Eastern Europe, and even like English, Scottish barley varietals, like the old sort of Golden Promise and Galaxy kind of stuff? Do we see much of that here in Australia, or is it mostly, as you say, like Planet and Spartacus and?
Well, I think Planet was one of the newer ones from overseas, Europe and through there.
Yep.
But well, you've just got to remember that we've got a totally different rainfall pattern, growing pattern to a lot of our northern hemisphere grains. So, you know, yes, I know of one called Galaxy, a barley named Galaxy that was out here. It didn't do much good, but a lot of the other ones, well, you know, we've probably got half the rainfall that some of the European places have that are growing barley, and they must have a different type of barley because it must mold even with the rainfall on it.
But yeah, well, and very different barley types, and maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I was going to say resilient, but I don't know if that's the right word for it. But yeah.
How often are you changing up your types? I know that there's, you know, the CSIRO and a lot of companies like that are forever trying to come up with, you know, more resistant and higher yielding varietals. Are you changing year to year, or do you find like 5 or 10 year blocks with varietals?
I would say it'd be more like 2 to 3. But I try something new. You know, I've been through.
We've had 4 years of Planet, right?
Yes, but I've had other varieties in there.
Yeah.
When the first year I grew Planet, I had some Hindmarsh in. The second year I grew Planet, I had some Latrobe in. The third year, I had all Planet last year. And and this year I've got some Spartacus in with the planet, or just testing it against the planet. So I'm sort of growing more than one variety most years, just sort of testing to find which one suits you best. Hindmarsh was a tremendous variety. It would yield on most years, but it didn't get malting accreditation.
Right.
And it's because one of the distilleries I work with uses 6-row barley.
Yes.
Most of what we see is 2-row.
Yes, I'd love to go back to. I'd love to go back to the old Cape barleys. Cape barleys were all 6-row barleys. There's not many 6-row barleys being grown in the country commercially now, unless they're under contract or something like that.
They're very high rain style barleys.
Yes, they'd have to be grown in
really high rainfall areas,
or Tasmania, or right down in the southern end of Victoria. We're only in about a 22-inch rainfall area here, so you know it's a little bit better than where I come from. I come from 14, so
just some of the. I just want to just mention a few comments coming in. Of course, Vicky Darlenberg, a friend of the stream, says, "Hey, Colin."
I'm sorry.
Mum says hi.
Oh, right.
And Peter Bignell asks, "Alex, has your dad got his knees done yet?"
So do you remember the farmer I was telling you about that makes the rye whiskey?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I told him that I'm going to give him your number so he can yell at you getting your knees done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the answer's no, Peter. He has not had his knees done.
I've still got pneumonia. I'm always whinging about it.
I tell you what, I have seen Peter with his new knees, and I've never seen him move quicker.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me is I do a lot of welding, and if I was down on my knees on steel that was earthed out, and I'm putting new rods into a stick welder, I could actually short them out.
Short your knees out.
Yes, I know of it happening.
So we'll call you Neil.
That's one of the things that do worry me. I'm waiting on. I've got some American friends that have had they're getting a new process done. They're putting a pad in between the two joints, and
he reckons he's going to have bionic knees. So the answer's no.
I'm sort of waiting till that comes to Australia.
Which is why I'm here, because I'm what they call the gopher. I go for this and I go for that and I climb up that and I open that gate, and that's basically all I do during harvest is just be his legs.
Yeah.
And
I've got a 4-wheel motorbike that is my legs.
Yeah.
I ride it everywhere.
I just want to pick up quickly on the point that Puddles was making just before, in regards to, I believe you were talking about.
Oh, did it? It's all right, Dad. Yeah. He's
Paul
lost his earbud. Got it? Get it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was the Paul John distillery in India, which uses a 6-row barley, and that has quite a big impact on the final product of their whiskey. It's got a beautiful, oily, rich texture, and it sort of gets us thinking a little bit about, obviously that 6-row barley, as Colin was pointing out, can't be grown everywhere. So it's something quite unique, a bit of terroir to that country and that world and their process. But in that sort of realm, barley gets used for a lot of different things. Obviously, we're talking about whiskey and beer, but it gets used for, the hints in the name, feed for cattle feed and all that sort of stuff. Do you ever think about the end use of your barley when you're sowing and harvesting, or do you just get the best barley that you can use, that you can produce, sell it off to the silos and the traders, and then they'll figure out what to do with it from there?
No, I look at it because I feed a lot of barley to stock, and it's got to have decent protein, and that's something that malt barley doesn't want. Malt barley only wants it between about 9 and 12. I'd like to see, in
protein,
drought,
9 and 12% protein,
and in drought years, some of the barleys that I grow go up to 16% protein. So the drier the year, the higher the protein. Yes, I look at protein because of the simple reason that I feed it to stock, and protein is what stock want.
But we don't want it in whiskey.
Well, that's right. It's a totally different field.
Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I in a connection of like that style of question. I've grown up for years with Dad around harvesters. God, since I was probably 9 or 10, I've either sat in a ute or sat in a header with him during that season, and it's always November, December, and sometimes even into Christmas. So Christmases weren't a big thing for us around the farm because it was always flat stick in harvesting. And Dad was one of the largest harvesting contractors in Australia, so
Not really, but
we had about six or 9 going at once. Six going.
Six.
Not really. He's cute. And
she's been talking you up, mate. You're the biggest harvester in the world, or she's been telling us.
No,
in my heart he is. But
I wouldn't blow wind up a lot of people's rear end.
Oh shit. Anyway.
You taking notes, Alex?
Yeah, I fucking hell.
I think you're learning more than there you go.
I think you're starting to see where the chatterbox thing comes from. It's kind of in the genetics. But I never really, I used to hate harvest all my life. I think it was just that young, immature moment in me of the fact that I didn't get time to spend with my dad. However, since the whiskey craze started coming and you start learning back, I actually started learning the connection of, holy shit, my dad's been harvesting this shit for years. And I think that's kind of where it got me interested in the fact that I'm going to come help you with harvest, Dad. And it's been for a couple of years now because I've never been allowed in tractors before until I got older. But it kind of gave us a connection between the whiskey and the fact that he's been a harvester all his life. So, yeah.
Very cool.
I might have kept you out of tractors, but look at you now. At least you're still alive, and at least you've got 10 fingers and 10 toes.
Very true. Very true.
I've got a question for Colin just about whiskey. Actually, Colin, do you enjoy a dram, and what does that normally look like for you?
Do not drink.
Okay, fair enough. Worth asking.
So, if he does drink, he'll have a half Bacardi and Coke.
Yes.
And that's a special
and
drink at the dinner table.
And you could count them on one hand for the year.
But that's just
Bacardi.
Yeah.
Well, it got to the stage where I used to like me beer, but beer didn't like me. And when 0.08 came in originally, I got breathalyzed one night and I was about 0.05 or something. And I said, well, that's it. If I'm going to keep me license and keep driving and keep me business, I'm going to have to give up something. And that's basically where I give up drink. And,
you know it's 0.05 now.
I know it's 0.05 now, but it used to be 0.08 originally.
Yeah.
And that's where I just give up drink and haven't worried about it.
Yeah, fair
and
enough.
I just look at all the money I've saved when, I see some of these blokes paying $5,000 a bottle for whiskey and, all that type of thing.
Yeah. We don't know anyone like that. Yeah.
I don't have that kind of money.
I've never spent
No
more
one
than
does.
$100 on a bottle.
Yeah.
But it is a really good point, and I think it's a general point for farmers of all ilk and even just people who live in regional areas. We live in the city. We take it for granted going down to the pub, having a beer or having a whiskey or whatever it is after work, and being able to walk home or get public transport and that sort of thing. But it's that it can be quite lonely in regional areas if you're by yourself, and it becomes difficult to get 20 k's down the road to go and have a beer with someone. And how do you get home from that and that sort of thing? So I know it's something that we don't think of all that much when we're sort of siloed in the cities here, but it's a really big issue, and it's something that we take for granted quite a lot.
Mm.
We used to go 100 k's to the pub on Friday night. just to have a beer. And a bit of a wild time, but it got to the stage where we had to designate a driver to get us home.
How many years ago was that, though?
Oh,
50?
Push me back to about 20.
54 years?
Yeah, something like that. But it was nothing. It was nothing for us to go 300 k's to a B&S ball. Miles never met a
Which
thing.
I was never allowed to go to, by the way.
And for
From
good
neither
reason.
my father nor my mother.
Very good reason.
I've
Very
never
good
been
reason.
to a B&S because of that.
But anyway, that's,
Non-Aussie here. What are we talking about?
Oh, Bachelor and Spinster's Ball.
Bachelor and Spinsters, yeah. All the young bucks and all the young girls get together at a real wingding where they see if they can outdrink one another. Whiskey and rum and everything else.
Spirits, utes, and fire, normally.
Yes,
That's it.
Right.
And burnouts.
Yeah. Just on that topic, then I've got a few of my own favourite, but I'd love to draw on your experience here, Colin. The greatest pub in regional New South Wales or Victoria?
Used to be the Carnago pub, but it got burnt down several years ago.
Yeah.
That
Carnago
one had
near
it's
Denny?
between Denaliquin and Geraldry, yes.
Yeah, okay. It's now just the facade, isn't it? You drive past it. And
That's right, yes, that's right.
At the
that's
T
right.
intersection. I know exactly where you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the place
for a
that
long time,
does...
people had that Carnago sticker on their back on their four-wheel drive. Everyone had the "I've been to Carnago pub" sticker.
Yeah.
You saw them everywhere on every ute. Every four-wheel drive had "I've been to Carnago pub."
That's right.
And what's the place in Echuca that does 100 Parmigiana toppers?
Oh, I couldn't tell you now. Yeah, there's one there.
It's
I couldn't
amazing.
tell you. Yeah.
100 toppers for schnitzels.
Can you get
So
all?
he had like... You would ask that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
All right.
I might have to head in the ring here for the Mystic Park Hotel, which is just near Kangaroo Lake, in between Swan Hill and Kerrang, a small town there. And I won remotely.
I know where Mystic Park is. Yeah.
I won the footy tipping there a couple of years ago, and I couldn't get down for my free case of beers, so the locals drank it for me. But someone in Mystic owes me a beer.
Yeah, but there's a lot of good country pubs. There's a bloody lot of good country pubs, and they've had to change their facade in later years because they weren't so much for the drinking. It was the meals and the entertainment on Saturday and Sunday night, and those types of things. When we were on the road with the harvesters, we always stayed in pubs, and a lot of them were absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And I can't speak highly enough of them. But, and I suppose it all boils down to the local publican at the time.
Absolutely.
And that's how they survived.
Mm.
But,
I can see those shadows getting a little bit longer behind you, kids.
Oh, it's so wonderful. I'm sorry, it's been stinking hot here today. I've had a couple of changes of clothes already. But that was also because of the stuff we were cleaning out. But it's been about 32 and it's going to go to 41, 42 on the weekend. So it's horrible.
Jeez.
And you can see us swatting flies as well.
And you've got to get some dinner underway, so I think we're gonna start wrapping up in just a moment. But Colin, just want to say a huge thanks for being on Roundtable tonight, and we don't want to keep you on all evening. So really appreciate you being here and having a chat with us.
Well, thank you very much. I'm all for trying to promote the
whiskey industry.
Farmers. There's no whiskey industry without farmers.
That's right.
What I'm trying to say is cross the divide between city and country, so as we all realise that we are interdependent on one another.
Yeah. Without one, the other doesn't exist.
Yeah, we grow the barley to let you let you go malt your whiskey, and we grow the barley to feed the cattle and the lambs and everything else that provides your meat. And there's a lot of products that have got barley flour in them, and those types of things. So, we grow the stuff, and it's usually sent to the cities or somewhere to be processed and that type of thing, which means jobs and that. So, and this is why I'm reasonably keen to promote that inter-cooperation between city and farmers. It's not them against us. It's we're all in this one job to for the betterment of both of us, or the lot of us.
Yeah.
AKA, you cannot get drunk without farmers.
Yeah. you need a lawyer maybe a couple of times in your life, and hopefully a doctor not too often, but you need a farmer 3 times a day. And just
that's right.
Yeah. And I highly believe you on that one, Colin. And I think it's time that I did my bit. So I'm willing to take Andrew Milne Puddles to a B&S ball somewhere and introduce him. I know it's people are talking about schoolies at the moment and toolies, whatever the toolies equivalent to a B&S ball.
Can I come?
But yeah, we're all going to take Puddles to a B&S and just see his mind explode.
Can I borrow the ute, Dad?
Well, which one do you want? The old F-150?
I'll take the old F-150 with the 351 in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Puddles on the bonnet.
Just say it again.
Strap him onto the bonnet. Like you would...
Puddles on the bonnet. There we go. Just to make sure it's there.
We've just worked out the slogan on our first T-shirt.
Is that an extension from
Puddles.
the Global Canada?
We found out. We found out last week he's nicknamed Puddles. So
yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah, and that joke is going to give us a lot of ammunition.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
particularly during the middle of harvest.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, he's going to go get some dinner and some tractor. I am just going to go a little bit closer, so I'm really sweaty and hot. But can you see?
There it is.
My ponytail hanging down?
Yeah,
there it is.
There it is. That's the backbone of what we all enjoy, right there.
That's it. Oh, I really am hot and sweaty.
Anyway, I'll leave you with it.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you again. Roundtable, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you, everyone.
Right, guys. Thank you.
Lots of love, guys.